All right, so we are in the main topic for this episode, the other health stuff part two. Uh, this is where we talk about my least favorite of these other health items, which is the cold plunge. It's my least favorite because I hate the cold. I hate the cold. I hate the cold. I hate the cold. So my sauna is my favorite, cold plunge is my least favorite. But the benefits of cold plunging, they're great. They're great, right? I've been cold plunging on and off for years now, just as many years, I guess, as I've been doing the sauna. And it's funny because with cold plunging, so like with sauna, I know I'm going to go and I'm going to feel pretty good and relaxed and all that fun stuff, even though the heat is turned up and I'm kind of like, and it puts a little pressure on me. I still get nervous before I do every cold plunge because it's just that difficult for me to do. Like I have yet to get used to it. There's never been a point in time where I was actually used to cold plunging. So what do you do exactly when you go to cold plunge, right? So I mean, there's a number of different things that you can do that falls under the like cryotherapy umbrella or whatever. Like you could do cold air cryotherapy in a chamber or whatever, or isolated single spot cryotherapy. That's something different. In this case, I'm talking about submersion cryotherapy, which is cold plunging. You jump in some water up to your like neck. I never tried the one where you like submerge yourself real quick and then come back up to your neck. That's crazy. Couldn't do it. But you can jump in some water that's around maybe like 50 degrees or lower. Not to like, completely frozen block, obviously, right? But like I've heard people doing a cold plunge in something as low as 38 degrees, which I don't think I can. Well, yeah, that's cold. That's cold. So, but either way, you jump into it, and based on the actual temperature of the water, that's how long you're gonna, that's how you gauge how long you stay in it, right? So, typically, what I end up doing is I'll jump in some 50 degree, probably a little bit less, maybe around 40 degrees, which is still a really cold water, and I stay in it. Actually, you know what? It might even be colder than that. So maybe whatever. I still don't like it. But you jump in the water, have ice in the water and all that fun stuff, and I stay in it for 1 to 3 minutes. It took a long time to build up to 1 minute. Let me put it that way, because the first 30 seconds, you just get that cold shock, and I start hyperventilating and so on and so forth. And then a few times after that, what I ended up doing was stepping in it as it was somewhat warm water, and then had the chiller kind of turn on, and then so progressively it got colder. But there was still a point where it was too much to take. But that's the idea of what you would do. So you see people, jumping out in the cold lakes and stuff like that. That's a little risky. That's a little risky because that initial shock to your system that you get from that cold water could cause all types of issues. So, but there's people who do in tubs. Athletes do it all the time after a hard workout or whatever. So that's the general idea of what you're doing here. You're basically just getting in a tub of water, getting in a body of water, and you have ice in it or not, but it's generally cold water. So here are the benefits to cold plunging, right? I'm gonna lay them out, but I'm gonna go over each one individually, right? So the first pretty decent benefit is it promotes fat loss. The next one, it improves circulation. Another benefit, it improves. So there are a number of different mental benefits, and in fact, this is why I do the cold plunge. I don't really do the cold plunge for any of the actual physical benefits, even though I know they're present. I do the cold plunge for the mental benefits, and there are quite a bit studies backed, science backed benefits to cold plunging. And then there's some anecdotal stuff as well, where through my experiences, the cold plunge has definitely helped out in terms of boosting my mentality or boosting my mindset. It's almost kind of hard to explain, but it definitely made me think differently. And another benefit is it boosts immune function. So it boosts your immune system. And that one's an interesting one too. So I'll go over all of them, starting with fat loss. So fat loss, the idea of fat loss or doing the cold plunge for fat loss breaks down into two separate ideas. So basically it comes down to you shivering. So or not shivering, right? So there's shivering thermogenesis, which basically means you're shivering, you're causing small minor contractions in the muscles repeatedly, and so that causes you to kind of burn some stuff here, right? And then there's non-shivering thermogenesis. This is actually the more effective one, okay? So I'll start with non-shivering, and then obviously I'll move to shivering at that point, and you'll get the point, right? So non-shivering thermogenesis is a process in which your body basically burns energy by converting your white fat into brown fat. And brown fat is more metabolically active, okay? So that's what's going on with your body, like your physiology is changing. Basically, your body is gathering this energy. So what happens is you get in this water, it's cold, and you're starting to drop your core body temperature, right? So remember, when we're talking about the sauna raises your core body temperature and your body reacts in a number of different ways. In the cold plunge, you're lowering your core body temperature and your body is reacting in a different set of ways. One of those ways is it's basically trying to draw everything to the core of your body so that you can still maintain some warmth, so you don't go below that point where it's just like, uh-oh, we're in trouble, right? The way your body does that is by converting some of the white fat that's usually in your subcutaneous fat in your skin to the more metabolically active and ready to burn brown fat. So that process in and of itself causes you to burn some energy, right? You need to use that process, takes energy to do, and then you're basically trying to heat up the core of your body with this brown fat. So and keep in mind, with the non-shivering thermogenesis, is just that, non-shivering. So there's no movement that's actually required. You sit there. With repeated bouts of the cold plunge, your body becomes more, again, it's another adaptation. It converts more and more of the white fat into the brown fat, which is easy to break down into free energy, right? So it's also very muscle sparing. Now, later on in this episode, in this topic, I'll talk about why you wouldn't necessarily add it, though, to a hypertrophy program or a muscle gaining program. And there's very specific points here, right? Because there's other things that come along with that. But then let's go to shivering thermogenesis, right? Remember, so it's shivering, you're just like, right? But all that is small, minor muscle contractions, and that happens so that you can produce heat. So you're producing heat, not necessarily at your core, but all over your body with these small little muscle contractions. Now think about it, right? You'll shiver when you're cold, when you're exposed to cold, but when else do you shiver? You shiver when you're sick. So think about it. When you're fighting off an infection, what your body does is it raises its core temperature. So basically, to raise your core temperature, your body will shiver, right? In this instance, you will shiver because, the whole idea of you have the chills and all that fun stuff, and it's just like, but really it's your body shivering to raise your body temperature to burn out that bacteria, that virus, or whatever it needs to fight, right? So it's the same process, just for different reasons. Shivering will then raise your body temperature to fight infection, or shivering will raise your body temperature because you're cold, right? But those are the two main things. But that requires energy. So the next thing a cold plunge could do for you, for your body, it could boost your immune system. Okay, so when you're exposed to cold like that so rapidly and for a consistent period of time, I guess, right? Your body produces additional infection-fighting white blood cells, right? But not only does it produce those, it also produces additional lymph fluid. Now that's important there, right? Because what is your lymph fluid, right? That's kind of outside of your bloodstream and feeds back into your bloodstream. So it's like another cleaner of sorts, right? So the lymph fluid transports the additional, all of them, really, all the white blood cells that your body is producing. So again, cold plunging will jumpstart your white blood cell production. Your lymph fluid will then also increase, and then it will transport all those additional white blood cells to where they need to go. Because your lymph fluid basically transports white blood cells, other nutrients and other like minerals to where they need to go, back into your organs. But it ends up going back into your bloodstream and getting back to your organs in a positive manner, right? While the lymph fluid transports all the good stuff, it also transports all of the bad stuff. So it takes away, it cleans through, and it carries in it viruses, bacteria, abnormal cells, mutated cells, or what have you. So the lymph fluid carries all that stuff away. So in essence, cold plunging jumpstarts the process of, boosting your immune system on one hand, but it also jumpstarts a detox process. And again, I know that's, it's like, oh, here we go. There's another person talking about detoxing of some sort. But this is actually what the doctors and other people were, professionals and everything, this is what they were actually talking about. This has already been proven. So your lymph fluid carries all of those bad cells, all those broken down, mutated cells, all the viruses, all the bacteria, all the bad stuff, transports that away, out, and all that fun stuff as well, right? And where's the end point here in this whole process where again, I want to start from the very beginning here, right? So it's like you expose yourself to cold, and that way, cold plunging, your body produces more white blood cells, your body produces more lymph fluid, so that lymph fluid carries more of those white blood cells around to your body where they need to be, but that lymph fluid also carries away all of the bacteria, viruses, broken down mutated cells, abnormal cells, what have you, and it pushes all of that stuff back into your bloodstream. All the bacteria and viruses and stuff like that go to your liver, into your kidneys, and then you pretty much, get rid of it from there, as we do every day, right? But then all of the white blood cells and all that fun stuff go to where they're needed for repair, for fighting off any additional infection. So basically, cold plunging jumpstarts that process. It makes that process more efficient. It boosts your immune system in that way. So I saw this one study where it was a bunch of swimmers, basically. And the more and more I hear about like just how good swimming really is for you, I'm not going to say the more I like it, because I don't like swimming either. So I just don't like water, apparently. But the more, there's one study I read was basically conducted with a bunch of swimmers, and it was just that, I guess the conclusion was that these swimmers were less likely to get upper respiratory infections simply because they were swimming in cold waters. So there is a definite benefit to cold plunging. as it pertains to your immune system, especially during, we're coming up on fall, even though it's a pretty hot day today again. But we're coming up on fall, we're coming up on winter, and all I hear is everybody sneezing, I chewed, and COVID is still going around in places. I mean, I guess everywhere. So something like cold plunging could definitely be a big benefit to you, just to make sure that you're not, knocked out of commission from some virus. Now, another reason you might want to consider doing a cold plunge, maybe 5 times, give it 5 times, right? No, for repeated bouts, is it improves your overall blood circulation. Now, what happens when you jump in that cold water? When you get in that cold water, your blood your blood vessels constrict, right? And they tighten up. And they force, basically, they squeeze blood to your core, to your center, the center of your body, to all the vital organs at the center of your body, right? And now, by doing that, it's forcing your vessels and your whole circulation to operate more efficiently, right? Because it's not going to be able to send a boatload, a massive amount of blood everywhere that it needs to be. We have to take care of your center, basically, is what your body is telling you, right? So when you do that, you get in the cold water, your blood vessels constrict, you start to operate a little bit more efficiently when it comes to your circulation. Then you get out and your blood vessels, contract, I guess, expand again. They dilate. That's the proper medical term. So they dilate, and then now it starts to operate as normal. But you still have that sense of operating more efficiently. But what that does is it forces your blood vessels to constrict, then dilate, constrict, then dilate. What does that remind you of? It reminds you of a muscle. Contract and expand, contract and expand. I'm doing bicep curls again. But it's the same thing. It's basically like deadlifting for your blood vessels. So, and that only makes everything stronger. It only makes everything more efficient. So it's a sneaky little benefit that I don't think is talked about enough. It improves your blood circulation. Now, the main reason why I do cold plunging, even though I listed off some really great benefits to doing it, I listed off some really great benefits for your health and for your body in a physical sense. The number one reason why I do cold plunging is for mental health. And so let me paint the picture a little bit here, right? I'll do sauna for physical benefits, mostly physical benefits. And I like it. It's relaxing. So maybe there's some mental benefits there too. But I do it for mostly the physical benefits, primarily for that lean muscle tissue gain. Again, say you're a meathead without saying you're a meathead. And I'll do the cold plunge for the mental benefits because, again, the physical benefits are great, but I find that I get the most out of it from a mental perspective, right? And I'll start to explain it basically, what does your body do physiologically, or biologically or hormonally, right? In a physical sense, what does your body do as it pertains to your mental health? So jumping in some pretty cold water causes you to, or could cause your body to release adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, norepinephrine, and endorphins. So that's a very interesting combination. Let's just say that. But what that basically says is it'll make you more alert. It'll make you more focused, while also reducing your stress. So it's a very interesting combination of hormones there that get released when you jump in some cold behind water. But that is typically what happens when you do, right? And that's why you hear of a lot of people kind of experiencing this type of high when they come out of it and all that fun stuff, because their body is being flooded with different, like, especially like the endorphins, that makes you feel kind of like at peace, right? And so I first started doing so I've done cold plunging for years, as I said, and when I first started doing it, it was purely for the physical benefits. I was an athlete. I was like, my joints hurt, and I'm just gonna pop in this cold tub. And it was never really that cold though, but it, maybe it helped and maybe it didn't. I don't know, but maybe over the last few years, I've really started to dig into and do the cold plunging for the mental benefits. And I remember, like, at the time I was going through some pretty rough stuff. I was essentially cracking under the pressure that is, my life, right? Like, it wasn't easy, I guess, right? Being a Christian father, Christian husband, entrepreneur, also trying to be a great employee for someone else, and then trying to achieve or accomplish the dreams and accomplish the visions that I had. It was just a lot of pressure, and a lot of things happened that kind of just that tagged me up a little bit. Let's put it that way, right? So I started the cold plunge, and for the mental part of it, and I didn't really know much about it in terms of its mental benefits. I just randomly heard, and I forgot what podcast it was, but this one gentleman used it as therapy, and so I gave it a shot because I was in a pretty low place, right? I was in a low place, and I needed to be mentally and emotionally stronger. Not even just for myself, but for my wife and for my boys, for my clients, for everybody that I came in contact with. I needed to be stronger. So when I first started doing that for that reason, I read all the literature on it in the background, and I heard, again, I forgot who he was, but he was saying he used it as a form of therapy. And then the literature I read said basically you can meditate. And I think that's also kind of part of the another guy, the Wim Hof method, where you kind of meditate in this freezing cold water, and grab the mental benefits from there. So that's kind of along the lines of what I was doing. That's what I tried. I tried to meditate, and it just wasn't working at first, right? It didn't happen for me. It was cold water, right? It's cold water. I hate the cold, and that's all I could think about. So I tried that a couple times, and it didn't work. And then I tried to actually pray while I was in there, and I was so distracted. I was so distracted that I couldn't even form. I couldn't even form the sentences in my mind to even pray. Like, I couldn't even connect to God in that way. And I want you to hear me here, right? I was using it. I was attempting to use cold plunging as therapy. And I got in this cold water, and I attempted to meditate, and I couldn't do it. I attempted to pray, and I couldn't do it. Why? And again, hear me. I couldn't do it because all I could think about was how cold that water was. All I could think about was how much my body was trembling inside of this, being submersed in this cold water. All I could think about was something external to me that is causing me discomfort. I was thinking outside of me. I was thinking of things that were happening to me. That's all I could focus on. And that's when I had my epiphany. I was so focused on how cold the water was. I was so focused on how much my body was shaking because of it. I was so focused on my external circumstances that I couldn't even get to a point where I had any semblance of a logical, straight through, rational thought. That's all I could think about. My environment controlled me. The water, the cold water controlled me. But I kept at it. I kept trying it. I kept doing it. Still get nervous before doing it, but I still kept going for it. And eventually I got to a point where I was able to be at peace. I was able to pray. I was able to actually meditate while in this cold water. And over time, for an extended period of time. Still never passed in 3 minutes, right? And that was the thing that was tripping me out, because it was just like, look, I can't stay in here for 1 minute. Like, man up. But it was one of those things where once I got to a point where my external environment wasn't controlling me as much, that's when I really started to figure it out. I started to figure out that I could focus and I could regulate everything. It no longer became difficult to do so. Drop right in it. Like, I breathed, I prayed, I had control over my thoughts. And that panic and that anxiety that I felt every single time before that, I was able to control it. I was able to control my emotions. I was able to regulate my emotions by switching my thinking. Sound familiar? So cold plunging became my way of dealing with life stress. My cold plunging became my way of dealing with life. And nobody really wants to deal with those things that make us feel uncomfortable. This was my practice. All right, and the better I got at cold plunging, truth be told, the better I got at handling other things that pop up in my life. Now, keep in mind, cold plunging isn't for everyone, right? I said before, earlier on, that you just jumping in the cold water, especially if you're going for a swim or something like that, and it's deep cold waters, that initial shock actually caused people to drown before. So the cold shock, people end up, kind of just like hyperventilating, and then they get a little bit of water and then they're drowning, which is, so that's not advisable, right? I wouldn't advise doing a cold plunge if you have any heart issues at all whatsoever, okay? It's too much stress on your heart. If that's one of the things that an issue that you have, right? I also wouldn't advise it, and I alluded to this earlier, I would not advise doing any cold plunging immediately after any form of resistance training, right? Especially if your goal is to gain lean muscle tissue, right? Because what it does is basically it blunts all of the effects of the actual resistance training. So if you cold plunge right after, like a workout where you just like, oh man, you pumped and everything like that, you're basically limiting the gains, right? And we don't want to limit the gains. right? I mean, it slows down muscle protein synthesis. It slows down the actual gene expression of yeah, I'm getting a little too complicated here, but it slows down quite a few things. It even slows down satellite cell activation, production and activation, so it's not going to get to your muscles to recover as quickly. So it pretty much becomes a detriment to your muscle gain. It's a detriment to hypertrophy. So you would want to do that on a completely different day altogether, just so you can avoid missing out on some gains here. You don't want to leave the gains on the table, right? But that's the cold plunge. A lot of benefits, a lot of physiological benefits, a lot of mental benefits. So if you are healthy enough, I would say give it a shot. Give it a shot. Start off with you could even start off with a cold shower. That's it. Start off with the cold shower. And slowly, little by little, increase how cold it is and how much of that cold water that you're putting on you, and then you can go from there. That is a great. Actually, that's how I started all this time ago. I just started taking cold showers, and you could actually see a decent amount of benefits from just that. Now, it's not exactly the same as complete, not complete, but as submersion, right? Getting in that water, but it is a good lead-in to eventually getting to that point. Okay, so that's cold plunging, right? My least favorite of all these other health things, but the one that you get probably most mental benefits out of. So the next one that I want to talk about is red light therapy. Well, wait, no, I lied. Actually, I want to talk about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, right? Now, I've done this quite a few times in the past, and it's different. It's cool, right? So what it is you basically get in this chamber or tank of some sort. Like, you actually get in it, and the whole thing is kind of like airtight and is pressurized, right? So then the pressure's turned up to, like, I guess 2 or 3 times what our outdoor, like, normal pressure is, and then it's pumped up and pumped in with 100% pure oxygen. Now, as an aside, did you know that the air that we breathe actively is not even mostly oxygen? We call it oxygen, but it's mostly nitrogen. I think it's like 70-something% nitrogen, and only 20%, 21%, something like that. It's like a very specific number. It has to be, though, because if it's like, let's just say if it's 19% oxygen, then like some sickness starts to happen or something like that, or some disease or some type of malformity or something happens. So it has to be at like a very specific number or above. But I think it's only like 21% oxygen. So it's like 70% nitrogen, 20%, 21% oxygen, and then the rest is just a whole bunch of other different gases. So we're not even really breathing that much oxygen in. Anyway, you get in this tank, it's pressurized 2 or 3 times normal pressure, and then 100% pure oxygen is pumped into there. Now, why would you do this in the first place, right? I mean, at times in the past, basically every time I used it for healing and recovery. That is it. It's one of the best tools to use, one of the best things to do for healing and recovery. And there's a lot of research on that pretty much proves as such. And well, I'm not just talking about, regular like muscle recovery, even though that's a big part of it, but I'm also talking about like wound healing, bone healing. Like, I heard this one story, and this is anecdotal now, but I heard this one story about this guy who broke his arm or something like that, and doctors were just like, yeah, you're going to be in this setup for at least 6 to 8 months. This dude came back 3 months later and got his cast off. But he had a whole setup. Like, he had the whole setup in his house. I actually heard that story multiple times because I think I heard something similar to that quite a few times. Yeah, he just broke his arm. He fell off a ladder or something like that, which was kind of crazy unto itself. But 3 months, like half the time that the doctor actually told him that, hey, look, we're gonna have to check these things, and you probably won't be good until 6 to 8 months. It's just like he basically cut that time in half, and he was healed like fully. So and he had the whole setup in his house and everything like that. And I don't really know of the cost. I think it's pretty expensive, but you know, for your health, I know people go to far lengths to improve on their health. So there's an option there. But yeah, so it definitely helps, in healing and recovery all the way through. It'll help you build form new blood vessels, which is also really good. So like if you can imagine a nice combination of like on one day out of the week, you do hyperbaric oxygen chamber or oxygen therapy, right? And, start to form these new blood vessels and all that fun stuff. And then you jump and do the cold plunge, and you you constrict those vessels, and make everything work more efficient, right? And then you go into the sauna, and it's just like you could imagine like a whole setup with these other health things. Now, granted, I've never done all four of these things that I'm going to talk to you about, or that I have spoken to you about, or whatever. I haven't done all of them in like a comprehensive program before. I think I might try that just to see, hey, run an experiment on myself and see what's going on, right? Just to see how I feel. Let's put a pin in that one. I might end up doing something like that at some time in the future. Anyway, that's what I use the hyperbaric oxygen chamber for: healing, recovery. It is superb for that. And that oxygen, the 100% pure oxygen, you can feel that stuff filling your lungs, and like you getting in there, in your body. Like that stuff is good. 100% pure oxygen. That is some good stuff. Like protect your oxygen tanks. I might start going around yanking them. Give me your oxygen tank. All right. Let me stop messing around. So now, finally, we'll get on to this final other health thing, and red light therapy. Now, what is red light therapy, right? Like, it sounds kind of funny, a little sus, but really, you basically just set up these panels that project a certain frequency of light, of energy rather, and you just stand there, right? So you stand there in front of these panels, and what these panels do is they give off this energy that your cells can absorb, and basically it boosts the mitochondria in your cells. That's the powerhouse of each cell. So it kind of supercharges your cells. Initially, this modality was used for, it still is used for like hair, skin, like your face and all that fun stuff, like smooth skin. But it does. There are more studies that are popping up that are showing that it has some benefits beyond just the purely cosmetic stuff. And there's still a bunch of studies coming out now. Now, it's a relatively, it's not, the process in of itself is not new. It was called something else before. But I think the uses of it are being explored more now as we speak. So I don't typically put the highest on my list of modalities. Like, think about it, like sauna and cold plunge, both of those have been out for like centuries, right? Hyperbaric oxygen therapy has been out since like the 1600s or something like that. And then I'm guessing, I'm not entirely sure when red light therapy came out, but it was photo something or another therapy before. I'm not sure when that came out, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't centuries ago. Right. So But they're still doing research on it, and pretty decent things are coming out about it now. I would typically just use it for like an energy boost. Really, that's really what it comes down to. I think every time that I've done red light therapy, I came out feeling more energetic. I didn't necessarily feel recovered in a traditional sense. I just felt like I had more energy, right? And I'm sure there are additional benefits. I'm just waiting for the research to kind of catch up with it a little bit more before I mention anything else concerning red light therapy. But it's on this episode as something to try, something to see, and kind of go from there. So that concludes all of the other health stuff, and it was a 2-part episode, or 2 episodes, whatever. It covered a lot, right? And as newer things come out, or as additional studies come out, like for instance, as red light therapy becomes a little bit more developed and they maybe potentially find additional benefits, I'll bring it back on the episode and start to talk about it, dig into it a little bit more. And we'll find ways to, kind of implement it in our routines, all that fun stuff. And as newer things come up, do the same thing with those. But that's the other health stuff, right? Let's get on now, for some random things. We're going random today. So if you like this segment, here's another one for you. Click over here. And if you want the entire podcast, go this way. Click on that one right there. And once again, I appreciate you. All right, you take it easy.